That's pretty bad. Would you take a few hours off so you can get some sleep and go right back to work? That's both in the afternoons and nighttime. Well, generally in the afternoon, I'll take a few hours so I can get a few hours sleep or run some needed errands. The other day, I'm at the store. As I'm approaching the store, I see this crazy woman holding a Bible. And she's chastising the entire parking lot, and I'm like, I don't want to deal with this. As I'm getting closer, I know she was eyeing me because I could feel my face singeing with the heat. As I'm getting closer, she starts greeting me the riot act, shaking that Bible at me. Never opened it once, but she's shaking it at me. I says, yeah, you have a nice day. Walked inside. On the way out, she picked up right where she left off. Now, I never liked people beating a Bible over my head and telling me what I had to believe. And I never felt very comfortable doing the same to other people, something I want to get into. So let's get to it. How you doing, guys? I never realized just how one-sided Jehovah's Witnesses really were until I went out and field service with them. Now, I was not a great witness, basically because I was not aggressive. I was never a salesman. So basically, as a Jehovah's Witness, I sucked. I was never very aggressive at the door. If somebody told me they weren't interested, I'd be, okay, fine, you have a nice day, and I'd move on. More often than not, whoever I was with would jump in and start pumping literature at them. Now, if somebody told me they're not interested, I respected that and walked away. Most Jehovah's Witnesses would pry, well, why aren't you interested? I never liked prying, basically because if I'm not interested in something, I don't want somebody pumping it into me. Well, many of the elders many times would say to me, we're planting seeds. Well, on those rare occasions I would read them a scripture, I would tell them, well, the seed was planted. But they were like, well, we have to cultivate these plants. And I'm like, yeah, much like plants in the desert, who cultivates those? My thing is, if you planted a seed, it will grow on its own, whether they're interested or not. If they are interested, they'll show up. And don't tell me it doesn't happen. It doesn't happen very often, but it does on rare occasion. But I didn't realize at the time that it was all about the numbers. That's why they would go back week after week after week. You remember those so-called good calls? And many of them never stepped foot in the Kingdom Hall, but on occasion they would get the law one in. See, it was all about the brownie points. It was all about the hours, number of hours. It was all about the number of publications placed, and it was all about the number of people that they dragged to the Kingdom Hall. Is it me or is it getting darker in here all of a sudden? Cloud must be going overhead. I got the lights off. Well, as it was, as one of Jehovah's Witnesses, I failed miserably because I didn't believe in pumping people full of BS if they weren't interested. My thing is, if you're not interested, you're being coerced into going to the Kingdom Hall. You're being coerced into studying. So now the thing was, I was not coerced into doing so. I voluntarily went after them to do so. But I was a rare exception until I saw through the BS. And once you see through the BS, there's no turning back. Jehovah's Witnesses and Watchtower both claim that they are not the masters of your faith. But try disagreeing with them. Try disagreeing on even the smallest, minuscule little detail. And you see how fast you're brought into a judicial committee. It's BS. They are most certainly the masters of your faith. You have to believe whatever they believe. And that doesn't matter if it's changed this week, next week, changed back to what it was the week before. You have to believe it. Now, everybody's got their core belief. And you're not going to change it at a drop of a hat. But Jehovah's Witnesses, they all have this groupthink. And group thinking is bullshit. That is what you call mind control. Well, as it was, I'm no longer one of Jehovah's Witnesses. Now, I had thought about starting up a channel long before I did, and I finally did in July of 2017. Wasn't sure where I was going to go with it. But the one thing I discovered real quick, I didn't want to use the Bible a whole lot. Because I figured whatever audience I had at that time or would gain it over the next few months, they had the Bible pumped at them for years, most of them. And they didn't need it pumped into them again. Plus, I didn't want to limit my audience because not everybody stayed religious. And the other thing was, I didn't want to be tagged as a religious channel because I'm not a religious person. But the one thing I found over my first few months, that a lot of people had their own ideas. I got a lot of suggestions. Some of them were good. Some of them were a little bit pushy. This is what you need to do. You need to talk about this. You need to talk about this. You need to go to this scripture. More often than not, I would ignore it. But on occasion, somebody would send me an idea that I could customize and use to my own liking. When that happened, more often than not, I would get in the comments section by the person who gave me the idea, "That's not what I told you to say." Excuse me, last I checked, this was my channel. This is called hijacking somebody's channel. And recent months, I had talked to Mike and Kimmy both about people that like to hijack other people's channels. And where was I going with that? I'm sorry, guys. I am totally brain dead. These hours are getting to me big time. But the most part, you'll find that people who hijack other people's channels either have no platform of their own, or the platform that they do have has minuscule views. So what do they try to do? They try to get somebody who has a larger channel or somebody that they think is new so they can manipulate them into thinking what they want them to think. That's too much like the Kingdom Hall. And I noticed Mike and Kim get quite a bit of that, people trying to hijack their channel. This is where you need to go. This is where you need to go. Tell them about this. Tell them about this. And the problem with that is when you do what somebody else wants, it takes you away from your own agenda. And the thing is, you find yourself talking about and answering questions about things you never wanted to discuss to begin with. See, I never wanted to limit my audience, so I stayed away from using the Bible. I used it less and less and less. I will use it to make a point. But the other thing, too, now, that I wanted to touch on, and I don't have a clue where I'm going, but I had started thinking. I used to come down on what Jehovah's Witnesses believed in. And I started thinking about it, and I'm like, why would I care what somebody believes? I never had a problem with what Jehovah's Witnesses believed in. I don't have a problem with what Baptists believe. So why would I try to fight against what they believe? I never had a problem with that. What I had a problem with was Watchtower's piss-poor policies. They're hiding the pedophiles. If Jehovah's Witnesses are happy believing what they're taught, that's fine with me. I never cared to begin with. So I pretty much started leaving that alone. So I started using the Bible less and less and less. So I left their teachings alone. I know a lot of people like to come down on their teachings, but that's fine with them. They're making their point. I chose not to. So I started using the Bible less. I started talking about what Jehovah's Witnesses believes a lot less. And over time, let's face it, if you're out here for any amount of time, your channel does morph. It never stays the same. Subjects change. You move on to different things. And like I said, I was never a religious person. And if I continued the way I did my first few months, I probably still wouldn't be out here. Now, we've all dealt with trolls. And I've talked about this a number of times. But I found out there is actually one thing worse than the JW troll. And that's the wannabe Christian troll. Now, I've had a number of them. And I always watch them a little wary-eyed because they don't start off attacking right away. They basically will leave comments, but you're not sure where they're going with them, so you pretty much leave them alone. Every so often, you get a comment that's about 10 miles long, loaded with scripture after scripture after scripture. Now, I know I don't read them. And I know pretty much nobody else is going to read them. And I'm telling anybody out there, if you want to leave a comment like that, upload your own videos because nobody is reading them. I'll leave them for a day and then they're going to disappear. But these wannabe, and I say wannabe Christian trolls because I'm not talking about the actual deal. I'm talking about the people that think they're perfect but can find fault with everybody else. Kind of like a JW. But they will leave their comments, but you know, somewhere down the line, they're going to have an issue. And it always happens. Whatever you may upload certain content that they object to, and then they start their attack. Now, I can't remember what this tool's name was. I made mention of the songbook a couple of weeks ago. You know, the one with the phallic symbol on the back. And immediately jumped on me about it. I want you to look over my shoulder. What do you see? This person, this idiot, made reference to this thing that, well, somebody could actually see a phallic symbol behind your head. Well, you see one because you have a dick fetish, much like your old man. But I want you to take a look. This is an anchor. This is not a phallic symbol in any way, shape, or form. And if anybody had a phallus like that, they wouldn't be able to walk. But let me explain something. You dumbass, you Megatroid. This is a wall ornament. It's an anchor. What was done in the songbook was done intentional. It was made to look like a penis for a reason, because it was. This was not. But I have gotten more of these attacks by these wannabe Christians over the last few weeks, and I can't remember, what was the other guy's name? Buddy and Cricket. Who, I checked his channel out and his playlist, he had nothing but Disney. You don't get more satanic than Disney, pal, so you want to be careful before you start throwing rocks. But my point is, whether you're a JW, an ex-JW, or whatever, you are the master, you are the ruler of your faith. Nobody else can dictate what you believe. I didn't like it when I was a JW. I didn't like it before I was a JW, and I sure as shit don't like it now. Anyways, guys, that's all I wanted to bring to your attention. I am going to get me a few hours shut-eye, and I'll be talking to you soon.